flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We apologize for being a couple minutes behind schedule. We were in an executive session regarding a confidential legal matter, so we ran a couple minutes longer than we expected. Mr. Basil, would you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Basil here, Mrs. Bites, Mr. Doty, Mr. Kurtz.
Here.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Here.
Mr. Speed.
Here.
Ms. Twardowski.
Here.
Mr. Wolf.
Here.
Mr. Martino.
Here. The procedures for public participation are the same as always. If you have an issue to discuss, you come to the podium, state your name and address, and sign in, and Mr. Wolf will sign 3 minutes that we allow each person. Moving on to announcements. Are there any agenda items? I have one if there's no objection. I'd like to move personnel, item 11B1. I'd like to move that up to a separate issue and do that now, to have a motion to appoint Mr. James Harris as our district superintendent.
I would support that.
Is there a motion to do so?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Wolf, second by Mr. Speed. Any comment? Question?
Is this the motion to appoint the superintendent?
Yes.
Move it on the agenda.
No, this is a motion to appoint.
Oh, motion to move too, sorry.
No, we don't need a motion to appoint.
I didn't think so.
Is there any comment or questions?
I think we just do that by consensus. I don't think we need to. It's our agenda.
No, this was the actual.
No, this is the motion to appoint.
That's what we were asking.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Mr. Basil?
Let's see here. Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites. I'm sorry, she's not here. Absent. Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Ms. Twardowski.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes
And
7-0.
with that, if I may, Mr. Harris, you want to come up and join us? Mr. Small will show you how to use our microphones again. Let me just say, without going into Mr. Harris' entire background, as he has extensive experience managing school districts in various states on the East Coast, and we've tasked him very simply. We believe we have a good school district here. We've tasked Mr. Harris with making it better. And as a board, we believe that he'll elevate the performance of the administration, the teachers, the students, and even the board. So, Mr. Harris, anything you'd like to say?
Well, it's been a long time, and I've seen all of you many times before, and my family's here, and you get to see them, and I told them all about you, and you about them. The kids are a little nervous. My wife is happy. I'm just happy to be here, and hopefully I can do the job that you expect me to do.
Thank you. Mrs. Harris, having been born and bred in Philadelphia, you'll like it out here much better.
I do have an agenda item I'd like to request. Under new business, it's
discussion of an ad hoc safety committee to discuss any ways that recommendations we can improve safety within our school district. Just a discussion, not necessarily a vote. If there's no objection. What's the actual? Safety committee discussion would be the title of the item under new business. Mr. Small, am I not correct that you and Mr. Blankenship actually have been doing safety audits?
Safety committee that's in place is specifically for occupational safety. It's mandated by the state as a part of our workman's comp package.
Yeah, I'm just asking if we can discuss this later.
We're talking about like a school public safety and security. More,
Especially in light of some things happening around the country, I think the discussion should be happening.
It's a good discussion topic.
Okay, and also under announcements, an executive session, as I said, was held prior to this meeting, and everyone held after this meeting to discuss negotiations and some personnel issues. Are there any public comments about the announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, first I'd like to recognize Mr. Hamid Chandri. Oh, no, I'm sorry about that. First, I'd like to recognize Mr. Hamid Chandri. He's not here tonight, but he is the Exeter Dairy Queen owner, and he has donated for free for the school district all the hot dog buns that are being used at the football game, the hot dogs, and the ice cream that is being sold. And all that money is going towards our booster club, and so it's helping our school district significantly. I wanted to publicly recognize him here at the board meeting, but I also know he's going to be recognized at the football game between Mifflin and Daniel Boone because I think they have another store over in the Mifflin area, and he donates money there. Tremendous support of us. I'd like to also thank Mr. Preston McKnight, who helped us arrange this supporter and facilitate this for us. The second thing I'd like to recognize is our sports boosters. Recently, many of you have heard our former middle school football coach passed away, and our sports boosters donated the funding to pay for a bus for our students to attend the gentleman's funeral, which we appreciated tremendously. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Any public comment or any board questions or comments about the superintendent's report? Seeing none, any public comment? Moving on to curriculum and instruction, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. I'm going to provide a brief update as to what we discussed at the September Curriculum and Instruction Committee. I will be sending out a more detailed version of this update to the full board. This is just a brief overview of any board members who would like to chime in. Committee members are more than welcome. We heard Mr. McKnight's state of the high school address and discuss some things that were looking very good for the high school. If you'd like to comment on that, you can. We had a discussion about receiving some information about secondary class sizes for every class in middle school and high school. We are continuing to look to our administration to provide this guidance for adding at-risk kindergarten for the next school year. And we also discussed a high school course approval form. And Mr. Basil might find it notable that I did ask a question for how do we evaluate these courses if the course is no longer desired? What is the, not just course approval, or course evaluation? I know that was something that we've brought up in the past. And again, we're continuing to look at the textbook review process. But I will be happy to send out a more detailed update to the board soon.
And the next meeting is February 28th?
That's correct.
Just had a quick question. Is anybody aware of this board or prior boards not purchasing any books at the request of the administration?
My understanding is we have purchased all books requested on this.
Yeah, I didn't remember it in the last 8 years that I've been here, any request for books being denied. Mr. Hurley, do you have any recollection of any books being denied?
Not at the school board level.
Yeah, okay. I just want to verify that. I'd seen that out there on some websites. The school board was denying purchasing books. I just want to make sure we had that record straight, that the board has never denied a request for books.
Any public comment on curriculum and instruction?
Hi, Steve Miller, 600 Ridge Drive. How many is this on?
No, you have to push the button. When it's red.
Okay, there we go. Steve Miller, 600 Ridge Drive. Just a question, as you mentioned at-risk kindergarten, I was wondering, is there any discussion about trying to bring back full-day kindergarten? I know that was the topic last year. It looked like it may or may not work. And just wondering if anyone was even looking at it at the school.
Well, right now, we're looking at risk. That's not to say in the future we won't look at full day, but our attention right now is on full risk, and that was the intention of the committee a while back, but that wasn't, again, the presentation the committee was shown. But we think that this is, I don't want to speak for the committee, but I believe that there's consensus to move forward pursuing this, and we might be able to look at full day later, but we want to make incremental good steps as opposed to potential to not doing anything.
Okay, I just wanted to check out because I know we looked at full day. It was discussed last year, and everyone's student be in agreement that we could afford it. I just want to know if it was actually taken a look at.
I don't recall there was no agreement that we could afford it. The presentation that was made was that it would cost nothing, which turned out to be incorrect. The cost was going to be $500,000 to $600,000.
And I said if we could afford it, so I just want to know if anyone was even looking at it.
No, not at this point in time.
Good evening, Amy Higgs, Orchard View Drive, Douglasville. Welcome, Mr. Harris. Mr. Basil, thank you for bringing up the textbook issue because it was me that commented on it. I know you know that. It has not been brought to the board, and the comments weren't that textbooks have not been approved. Rather, budgets have been so dramatically slashed at all building levels that administrators can't even make the decision to replace textbooks. We have textbooks throughout the district that are 15, 20 years old. Teachers need to put in their budget item each year if they want to request rebinding of these textbooks because they're falling apart. They can't be reordered because they're out of print. They're so old, they're out of print. And this isn't just in one building. This is in many, many buildings and many grade levels. I know back when I taught 4th grade, they still have those same social studies books. They are from the early 90s. They quote Governor Tom Ridge is our governor. I know that some teachers are here in the district that have their textbooks with their name in it from when they were students. So while you're not approving textbooks as they come forth, the review process, and I do know that you just started the review process, which is good, because I know that I just recently had to send to my administrator the textbooks and the date of purchase. So if that's something you're looking at replacing, I would see that as maybe a necessary budget item in the near future. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up, because it's worthy that the community know.
Yeah, I think the problem is the characterization that the school board is doing nothing or the school board is not.
That was somebody else who made the
Well,
comment.
it's not being corrected, for the record, on the DDA
The comments
website.
that I just made just now are exactly what I corrected.
Okay, well, it's not being done on a regular basis on the website, so it stands out there as if the board is not taking action, isn't doing the things that's being requested of it by approving books. And I think that that's a shame because that's not what's been the record over the last 8 years. This board has approved every book that's come before it.
Budgets have been slashed, but they're not even coming up as
They have not been slashed, they've been held. Our budget has never gone down since I've been here. It's always gone up. Every year, our budget has gotten bigger, every single year.
Not supply budgets for the buildings, not for education.
No, the budget has gone up every single year, and the reason why the budget goes up every year is because of our salaries and benefits. So the more money we spend on salaries and benefits, the less money we have for books and other things.
That's one way.
Let me ask you a different question, because you stand up at many meetings and address the board. I've never heard you mention books that were needed that have not been ordered.
Well, because I go to my administrator for that.
But if they're not coming to the board...
textbooks last year for, we read a novel, and they're falling apart because we couldn't afford the hardback books, so she was able to get me to replace some of the paperback books. That's an administrative level thing.
Well, what I'm saying is if the issue is not brought to the board's attention, we can't do anything to correct it.
I'll add that the textbook review review process is something that this board chose to pursue in the curriculum.
That is true,
committee.
and I appreciate that because it's long overdue. And I think it's maybe something that just fell by the wayside, and if you're addressing that in curriculum, that's excellent.
Thank you.
Moving on to buildings and grounds, Ms. Verdasky.
Thank you. We have not had a facilities meeting for October yet. We will be meeting tomorrow night in a joint meeting with Finance. Tomorrow at 6, and then the November meeting, I believe, is November 17th at 6 o'clock as well.
Any comments or questions from the board? Public comment on buildings and grounds? Seeing none, we'll move on to finance. Are there any comments or questions about the items listed under finance?
I don't think we have anything to report from the Finance Committee meeting since the board met since the private last Finance Committee meeting and reported the discussion topics at that time. We will be having a meeting tomorrow night with the Facilities Committee.
Mr. Small, the discussion on payment of PSERS in charter schools, did you want to discuss that tonight or tomorrow night at the Finance Committee?
I think we ought to discuss that tonight.
There's been a considerable amount of discussion in the media and through district emails from PSBA and whatnot. As a result of the budget impasse, districts that, especially that are cash strapped, raise the issue of do we have to pay our PSERS contributions, either all or in part, and tuition invoices to charters. I'll address the PSERS issue first. PSBA in August put out the legal counsel put out an opinion that stated that in this situation, since we aren't receiving as districts the state portion of reimbursement for our retirement contributions, that we don't have to reimburse the state during the impasse. PSERS fired back and said, not so fast. The law says that you do have to pay the district share. The state share, no. So that was an ongoing and continues to be an ongoing debate. I have as recently today tried to reach out to them and said, show me the statute that says that it has to happen this way, but I'm not getting a response. But some districts, if they feel that they're in sufficient cash position in the next spring, are paying, because we're going to have to pay it anyway. The statute, as far as the reimbursement, states that within 5 days of adoption of the budget and submission of the reimbursement to us, then we're required to send our portion in. So that's an issue. Some districts have chosen to say, no, we're not going to pay anything. These payments are due quarterly. The first one was due in September, the next is due in December. We did pay the entire amount, or the district amount for, as shown on a spreadsheet I submitted to in September. So if you want to say we're legal, we did pay it. We didn't simply say we wouldn't pay it. As far as charter schools,
Excuse me, Mr. Small, so we don't have to make a decision on additional PSERS payments until the end of November?
Right. We don't have to address it until December on either of these issues. Later I was going to just mention that you can, in both of these issues, you can choose not to pay anything. As far as the charter side, when those invoices come, keep in mind charters are like IUs in that they don't have the ability to levy taxes. However, there's been considerable publicity in the last 3 to 4 years related to the fact that charter schools are able to charge the sending districts the same tuition rate as brick and mortar. And as a result, they're building up substantial fund balances, which was what prompted the budget as it was presented in Harrisburg in June to reduce the amount of regular education students from $10,000, $11,000 a year to $5,950. So that's an ongoing debate. So the idea is charter schools aren't as bad off as they might seem to be. In fact, the one invoice that we received when we received it, there was an email attached that simply said, please advise us if and when your district will be paying us. So it wasn't like, hey, the law says you have to pay us. We're saying if and when, just tell us when we can expect our money. So that's a little different. Now, there's nothing in the charter law that speaks to a budget impasse. It simply says that you're supposed to pay by the 5th day of the month after you receive the invoice. Many districts simply don't pay their charter bill, and a couple times a year, PDE will withhold those payments from your basic education subsidy and forward it onto the charter. That's the way it's worked for years. So some districts are choosing to pay. There's another school of thought which was included in the opinion from PSBA that speaks to the fact that you would pay the charters a percentage equal to the local revenue percentage of your total revenue. In our case, I put on the spreadsheet, that's 67.86% of our total revenue. So those are some options. But back to Mr. Martino's question, you don't have to do anything, but you can say no, don't pay. But the next big payment is the PSERS payment in December. So we can discuss it at that point. Or the idea behind this is send a message as opposed to saying, yeah, we have the cash available, we could pay it. Many districts don't and won't pay. That's the
I wanted this on the agenda just because it's something that's impacting a lot of school districts that are heavily funded by the state, usually large urban school districts, where they're already getting tax anticipation revenue notes, and it's impacting their ability to keep their doors open. I think, quite frankly, that if the state can't get their act together, there's no reason or obligation on the part of school districts to make these contributions to PSERS or anything else if the state isn't following the very laws that they're requiring us to. So my recommendation and my thought was to the board was not to make these payments. And that puts more pressure on the state to step up and do what's right and get a budget passed and get the funding to the school districts where it belongs. And although we are fortunate in the sense that most of our revenue, fortunate or unfortunate, I guess it depends on how you look at it, comes from local taxes that allows us to stay fiscally solvent until February-ish without dipping into our fund balance. I don't think we should have to dip into our fund balance to balance our budget during the school year. I think it's something that we can withhold the payments to PSERS and to the charter schools and send a message to Harrisburg to sit down and work out a compromise and get a budget passed. And I think if other school districts do the same thing, it's going to put a lot more pressure on Harrisburg to get their act together.
Yeah, I would have to agree on that, because once you pay this money, you can't get it back. We need it for our students while Harrisburg gets their act together. We need it for our students because we still have to operate the school from February up till June.
Other comments or questions on finance?
Well, do we want to give, if everybody's in agreement with that, do we want to give some direction to our finance committee? We don't have to wait till December to do this. And quite frankly, I think other school districts out there right now that are looking at closing their doors or getting, loans to keep their doors open could use some help from their fellow school districts and fellow school boards.
I would agree. I do the full payments till the budget's passed. I think that really good. I think it's ridiculous that we have to pass a budget by June 30th based on the budget that they haven't passed 4 months later.
So we can make a motion.
So is there a motion?
Oh, are we making motions tonight? I don't know if it's an official voting meeting. But I'd be happy to make a motion.
Is there a motion to withhold payments to PSERS and charter schools?
Quick question about the charter schools then. So, Mr. Small, are you recommending we withhold the state portion of what we would receive and pay our 68%, or you're saying withhold the whole portion for that, and if we do withhold, then are we subject to any kind of penalty that we would owe the charter schools?
I'm not aware of any penalty. Like I say, most districts don't pay charters. They just let it come out when
Right, so, but we do, we actually pay ours. Yeah, because I've seen it on the,
We have, yeah.
yeah.
But as far as any penalty,
So if we stopped 100%, if we stopped the cold, then once the state gets their budget order, they would deduct that from our.
Immediately.
Mr. Harris, Mr. Small's going to be hard pressed to teach you how to use the microphone.
Well, we had 4 people and it wasn't his fault.
Sure, make excuses for him. So is there a motion to withhold Feasers and charter school payments?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Basil, second by Mr. Speed. Comments or questions?
I would just add, Mr. Small, if you could just keep us appraised of anything transpires in the interim as it relates to districts who have already gone down this route. If any developments come to light that we do not foresee at this time, please just let us know. I'm sure you will. I'm very interested in how this proceeds.
I'll email you from Britain.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was with withholding this complete portion of the Peasers now, where we, I don't know what the best way to phrase it is, can we go farther than February being solvent with not paying Peasers? Or would you factor in when you said that we were solvent up till February-ish with 60% withholding or the whole 100%?
When we presented our cash flow projection for February, it was as if we were paying 100% due as necessary. So
Okay.
obviously,
So we're going to go
further into the spring.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Basil?
Just clarification. We have a debt payment in February still, do we not? And then the last one's in April, correct?
I believe you're correct.
Okay. Let me see if I get this microphone on. All right. So we have a motion to withhold Peasers and charter school payments. First, motion made by Mr. Basil, second by Mr. Speed. Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathke.
Yes.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Mr. Nowski.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Any public comment on finance? Seeing none, before we move on, I was handed a note that the listed next curriculum and instruction committee says October 28th. It's a misprint. It should be October 26th. Presentations by board members. Mr. Basil, is there any secretary's correspondence?
I don't see any, no.
Is there a BCIU report?
Yes, Mr. Martino, thank you. As you can imagine, a good part of our discussion was about the state budgetary issues. What the IU has currently done is there's now a freeze on any new hires for any employees that would be directly involved with day-to-day student hands-on activities with the students. All travel expenses for IU staff have been deferred. As you, much to your surprise, the Health Insurance Trust voted to allow the IU to defer the payment for that for last month, so they will, of course, catch that up once they get their funding back. They are currently trying to work with any landlords to try and defer any rental payments. They did stop their Peasers contribution for September. Let's see here. We also currently, the loan anticipation notes are now, we have access to up to $15 million currently, which a good chunk of that, and once my meeting this month, I'm sure we'll get you close to that limit as well on that. And actually, so as of September, the loan anticipation notes were up to $15 million, and actually they had receivables of $18.6 million due the IU from state, federal, and local. So you can see having as of September, $18.6 million has not been received by the IU that is due them. So you can see what kind of hole that's put in. So.
Comments or questions for Mr. Rathke?
I have a quick question. Are they still serving free meals the IU board members?
Yes, they are.
They are, okay.
So I make a motion to cancel this.
I appreciate it.
Do we know what the anticipated interest costs are going to be of these trans notes?
Yes, they were LIBOR plus, I think it worked out to be about like 2.2% roughly in that realm.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a VCTC report?
Yes, thank you. The VCTC met on September 23rd. The main things that we covered that evening were the 2015-2016 school improvement plan, and also we received and went over the 2016-2017 school calendar. They're starting their draft calendar and trying to figure out conflict days with the districts and trying to pull that together. So we meet again in 2 weeks, and I'm sure we'll be talking budget season there too.
Thank you. Comments or questions from Mr. Gaskin? Moving on to the legislative report, I feel like we should be chanting, we're number one, we're number one. Our legislators, it's actually reached the point of being farcical. The governor has had his budget proposal shot down 3 times, yet came to the microphone to declare victory. The legislature is now talking about expanding gambling. And the reason I say we're number one is because we've now exceeded the 101 days the last Rendell administration took to get a budget passed. We're in day 103, I believe, without a budget. And there's no end in sight. There's just none. The Senate and the House are off most of the summer. And now they're talking about a recess because they have to get ready for their re-election campaigns. They're also talking about having budget talks without the governor, which means he'll just be in a separate room giving direction to his people. The Republicans are still talking about selling the state stores and other things, and Governor Wolf is still talking about increasing taxes, so there's just no happy medium, it doesn't seem. But that is the situation in Harrisburg right now, and then it's why we and 499 other school districts are talking about not making our payments. So, any comments or questions on?
What's the politics behind the stopgap funding measure that were vetoed like 2 times now? Like, why can't the government get the school districts who need this money desperately? Why can't they get us out of this little game that they're playing?
It actually passed the legislature, and Governor Wolf feels like it's too much resemblance of the budget they originally sent him, and feels that if he does that, it takes the pressure off for them to compromise.
So we're fine.
And they're also saying that because he did a total veto instead of a line item veto, that they cannot fund according to a line item. So it's a constitutional issue.
Yeah, had he just vetoed portions, he could have let the money flow to the school districts, but he decided not to. That's just where it stands. Moving on to the Student Board Representative Report, Ms. Sweet.
Thank you. Okay, so despite all the bad things on the news, there are good things happening at the high school, I promise. We had our homecoming game, and we also elected our homecoming team queen, which are Sydney Hansford and Miss Hughes, for any of you guys who know kids in the district. Yay them. The class of 65 did manage to come down and visit despite the weather. And senior county chorus auditions are tomorrow, so if you know anybody who's in there, wish them good luck. PSATs will happen on Wednesday. The blood drive is tomorrow, so for everybody out here, definitely come out and donate blood and save a few lives. Spirit Week occurred along with the Battle of the Classes. Burke's Outstanding Young Women, we had Sarah Hodgkinowski. She participated in that and had a blast. Safe Trick or Treat Night is coming up at the end of October, so if any of you guys have kids or know any little kids in the neighborhood, invite them to come down to the high school. We had normal school stuff happen, of course. We have our eye exams during our English classes, and we had a Gallup poll during history the other week, so I'm sure you'll see those results soon. We have senior nights for sports. They're still going on, and a bunch have occurred, so the seniors get their little recognition. And the Keystone benchmark process is happening in all those classes. So, if you have any other questions, go for it.
Thank you, Ms. Sweet. Any comments or questions for Ms. Sweet? Seeing none, is there a transportation report?
Oh, yeah, there is one.
No.
Yes, Ms. Sweet, I was just going to ask, I received some very positive note from somebody in the county about an event described as a very beautiful event regarding autism and autism awareness, or Down syndrome, rather. It was in the Red Eagle. Do you have any feedback on that?
Oh,
I think that was it, yeah. I haven't seen the article.
I'll just... Well, those are two different things.
But that was, when was it in the Red Eagle?
It was in, yeah, today, 20 hours ago. I haven't seen it.
I was going to say, there's two different things. Abby Reyna, there's one girl on the field hockey team who has cancer, and there was a huge fundraiser with t-shirts being sold and just kind of telling her story and all that she's fighting, and there's a GoFundMe. If you want to look her up and donate to her. She has a very, not horrible, cancer. Cancer is terrible. Yeah, it's a really long word with a lot of consonants. But yeah, she's been fighting that for a while, so we recognized her at the pep rally. But the Buddy Walk, as Mr. Kurtz was talking about, is completely different. That, I did not attend. I usually attend those, as you know, I love special ed. But that happens every year. It's just kind of a way for the community to know what the community does to help the kids and the adults in our community with special needs. So.
Well, I'm thrilled, Mr. McKnight.
I just want to, so the Abby Reyna game, that was for Autumn Disnomi, okay, which she's had this autoimmune deficiency issue. And the students rallied, sold the shirts, and it was a really nice day, a nice event. And then also, the field, the field hockey team, the soccer team also had an event for a family member who was also dealing with notes. So those issues, the kids in our schools, you're all well aware. As I've said before, tremendous at supporting each other and or charitable issues.
If you could just convey my thanks to the body for being so charitable, that's great. And it's also excellent that our local news media is covering some of these positive events that are happening in DPHS. Thank you.
Is there a transportation report?
Nothing to report.
No report. Are there any other reports? Seeing none, is there any public comment on any of the presentations by board members? Seeing none, we'll move on to personnel. Normally we would have voted on these at the next meeting, but since we were going to vote on Mr. Harris, I told Mrs. Kramer to go ahead and add these under personnel. So is there a motion to approve the following leaves and the volunteers?
I'll make a motion to approve 11A and B2.
Second.
Motion to approve 11A and B2, second made by Ms. Brodowski, second by Mr. Wolf. Comments or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Basil.
Motion for 11A and B2 by Mr. Stradowski, second by Mr. Wolf. Mr. Rathgen.
Just unanimous roll call, no? Yes.
I figured it'd just be easier to go through it this way. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Stradowski.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
And Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion approved, 7-0.
Any public comment on the personnel issues? Seeing none, we'll move on to programs. Is there any comments or questions about what's listed under programs?
Just wanted to confirm, Mr. Hurley, that the numbers you gave us just the other day with your update, those are October 9th numbers.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so according to that, enrollment's down 16 students since the first day of school.
I don't have the numbers right in front of me right at the moment, Andrew.
Okay. Okay. I just was looking at the numbers that we had received. I had, we summed those up at 3,415 students in the school district.
Yeah, we're down about 60. If you can look at June's numbers until now, about 60 students, give or take a few. It fluctuates on a weekly basis, literally. I mean, kids move in, kids move out. It depends on what grade levels.
Right.
That's just the way it works out.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I noticed was a significant drop in our estimate for first grade versus our projections at 215 students. That was significantly less than what we had originally thought, about 20 students.
Yeah, and next year we'll certainly incorporate that into our variance thing that we did at the end of the school year.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if there was some sort of explanation for that or not.
No.
Okay. Thanks.
Public comment on programs? Seeing none, we'll move on to...
Actually, I had one other question. I don't know if this is for Dave for you to pick up at, I'm sorry, Mr. Rathgeb at the BCIU, or if this is for Mr. Small. The letter of agreement between the school district and BCIU to provide student transportation, it states in there that we will pay our proportionate share regardless, once the number of students has been determined, regardless of whether they ride the bus or not. And then it goes on to say that they'll charge us more if additional students are added, and that we will reevaluate the total number of students periodically based on some sort of census. How often are we checking the census to see whether or not our students are on the bus or not on the bus, and whether we need to have a place on there? Does anybody know?
The reason this is on the agenda, the board had approved this contract to the program university earlier. Subsequent to that, BCIU looked at their program and said, we're giving away, if we adjust when we don't make the runs, we're going to be giving away their profits, if you will. The idea behind the two lines that were added are lines 7 and 8, when the same vehicle is serving more than one school. Originally, it has always been a multi-school run. This year, they added an additional district, so they substantially reduced the daily rates. And at that point, they looked at it and said, hey, our fixed costs are X, and if we try to make adjustments on days that we don't pick up certain students, then we're going to start losing money. So what they're saying is, we're going to treat this like a normal school bus run. If the kid doesn't get on the bus, then the run, you still get paid the daily rate. Okay. As far as any adjustments moving forward, what they're saying is, because we made this substantial decrease when the district was added, if that district drops out, then we need to come back and adjust the rates based on the actual mileage in the route. So if what they're saying, I believe they say they'll add or subtract in line 8.
Yeah, that's where I was getting. It says the cost of transporting the students will remain in effect for the school year unless the board adds or subtracts a student.
That's correct.
And I assume that the board is the Daniel Boone Area School District, correct?
Right.
All right, so this also includes that the vehicle is shared, blah, blah, blah. A revised contract will be sent out. So I'm wondering, how often are we changing?
Anytime there's a change in roster,
Okay.
which would cause a change in mileage, they'll adjust their rate. In our case, our two students are relatively close to each other.
Yeah.
The other two districts are Wilson and Reading
Right.
in the routing. So the likelihood of us causing a change would only be if both students dropped out. That's not likely to happen because these two students have been going for a number of years. But
Yeah.
what prompted the reduction is the addition of a totally new district.
Right.
So they reduced the daily rate. If that district should remove themselves from the route, then they would send a new contract and go back to a daily rate similar to what we were before.
So it's our responsibility then to notify the BCIU of the change in on the ridership.
Yes.
Okay.
That would happen, and then they would immediately create a new contract.
I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Moving on to policy, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. We have our policy review committee exciting, should have been there. We started going over the zero policies that we just got back from PSBA. We've actually had them for about 2 months, and we're just now getting to reviewing them. We had a goal of getting 5 of them. We were able to recommend 3 for the board for the first reading. 2 others had some minor adjustments we want to make to them to make them more personal to us. There was another policy that Mrs. Kiesel had asked us to change some dates on there to back up when the books would need to be approved, and so we did that. That was pretty easy. Other than that, the next review will be before the committee of the whole on November 9th at 6 o'clock here in this building. Thank you.
Comments or questions for Mr. Wolf? Seeing none, public comment or questions on policy? Is there any old business? Under new business, Mr. McKnight.
A few minutes to warm up. So going back to the conversation that we've had in the past about kind of making the school, the high school, but all the schools kind of the hub of the community. There was a lot of discussion around how we can increase drawing our community in, not only to the high school, but the other buildings. Also, how could we kind of standardize some of the things, and some of the conversations came up around band camp, and what was kind of happening, and were we under the same umbrella, same communication, and so forth. So I shared with the board and others that in previous stops along the way, we had done this, and that we had been able to turn in some revenue for the district as well to help fund a number of initiatives. So I want to kind of walk down, just reconnect everybody to where we are on the educational hub and drawing folks in. We want to have high community awareness, we want to have high community participation, and we want to try to generate some sort of significant level of revenue that supports the foundation of the work we're trying to do in the school, draws the community in, and deepens connections and community ties. In the area, there's a number of programming that we're looking at doing, but in this case, how do we develop the Blazer Summer to help, financially develop sustainable enrichment programs instead of constantly the 2 sources that you see are either taxing or cutting. So now here's an alternative revenue stream potentially. How does it draw the community to us? Well, we're going to use our facilities, access to our facilities, not only the athletic ones, but throughout the district, creating some proactive, facility rentals, and then also some strategic marketing in the process. We connect and develop deeper community awareness connections with our families. In the summer, many families are looking for something for the kids to do, and they'll find all kinds of places to send them. So if we can have that happen here in a camp-style format, in a lot of different avenues, and not only athletics, but through academic enrichment and hobby enrichment, that'll be the way to go. So the Blazer Summer is the way one way to do that. And in the initial point, my thought is for everyone to kind of think about and kick around. A 3-week summer, K-12 summer program starting June 27th. That gives us about 2 weeks off from school before students start to come back, and that's about the time parents want their kids to get out of the house in the summer and come back and do some things. Internal and external programming. First, we offered out to our staff and take, use their talents to run many programs and pay them. And if there's not a desire to run certain programming, then you look to external partnerships. The internal staff paid is at the intramural sponsorship rate of $25 an hour. And I would recommend on the external piece a 50-50 cut with any outside organization. We'd have to develop, in talking with Mr. Matz and Mr. Miller, an electronic payment format for the use for parents. It's a lot easier for them to be able to just swipe their credit card than to have to send checks in and track it that way. Here are some of the ideas and things that we were talking about throughout the district. At the high school, we'd like to see, obviously I focus more on the high school. I did speak with others, but I put more in there because I'm more familiar. AP Summer Bridge Program, offering a one-week AP prep course for our students who are taking AP and offloading some of their work there. A Summer Bridge Transition Program for students coming out of 8th grade into 9th grade into the high school who may need a bridge to actually transition through. World language programs in Rosetta Stone via independent study, which could enrich their opportunities for world language and college acceptance. We'll have to have some more broader conversation depending on where we are with the state on the project-based assessments. Offering early college from Montco and RAC, SAT prep, college essays, etc. Middle school-wise, when I talked to Mrs. Rexroad, the band camp piece is prevalent, and I talked to Mr. Gurman. There's the high school band camp, and then there's the elementary band camp piece. There's a bunch of different pieces that I don't even fully understand, but those who do understand it, and how you'd offer that out. It also happens at the elementary level. In the past, there was Camp Convention. We had a staff member leave the district, I believe, and so that program right now is destabilized, let's say it that way. Fair enough to say. And then theater camp, Mr. Miller told me that there has been theater camp in the past. We could broaden it well beyond that. In the athletic format, you see those 17 sports. One of the values here is you have our young athletes and young students participating in all those things, led by our coaches, enriching the athletic program, growing it at its grassroots level, also giving student athletes, young 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade kids something to do all summer. One of my favorites in a previous stop along the way was Cupcake Wars. If you ever think of Buddy, what's the name of that show? Cake Wars. I think it's Cake Wars, right? Cake Boss. Thank you. Yeah, that one. So we sold that out 4 weeks in a row at a previous stop. 40 kids each, and they bake cupcakes and they decorate them and they compete. And it's amazingly popular. But she's not. She let me do it. There you go. So robotics, band, theater, there's all kinds of ideas of activities. We're only limited by our staff's willingness and our building administrators' willingness to come up with ideas and motivate adults to have them and run them. So here's where many of you know I was previously. The first year we did it was 2014. We had 800 students enrolled in that, and we raised about $25,000, not quite $25,000 in revenue while we did that. We learned a number of things after the first run. There, and so we added these pieces that you see here for improvement to kind of streamline it. The benefit now is we don't have to go through that growth. We've already learned those problems and try to put pieces in. That's how we got to the online payment, kind of shopping cart model. The first year we did it through a staff member in an Excel sheet, and there were, we made a lot of mistakes and misapplied kids' times and things like that. So we got a little better at it as time went on. Governor Mifflin, then, I shared this with the athletic director at Governor Mifflin, and he made it, he didn't want to go into all the other stuff as far as hobbies and academics, so he just did it and named it the Governor Mifflin Sports Academy. And you can see last year they did it for the first year. They click there, and it'll take you right into to registration, like a shopping cart that you do when you shop any online source. And you can see here I put some samples up. So sample A is boys basketball that they ran at Governor Mifflin. Grades 2nd through 9th cost $70. It's run by the head coach of their district, and that's how they ran it. Those 2.5 hours, those days. Girls and boys tennis was run by the tennis coaches. Again, $70. And you'll see their different dates. So if you look, June 22nd to 25th, you can keep your students or your children busy all summer long with activities and things to do. I'll pull up the catalog because I want to show you how much more enriched we had this. I mean, Mifflin, and maybe we should only take a small bite too, the first year. I'm not sure that we can have a much larger discussion. I think Governor Mifflin, the athletic director, told me they made $14,000, compared to what they did here. Second year at Phoenixville, which I left before it got to that and joined you guys in the spring, they made $64,000 in year 2. And, they profited $64,000. So you can see all the sessions. It was a much more robust summer program, and it had, you'll see the volume of different activities that they had, and you can see kind of the pricing model. And I won't bore you indefinitely with it, but you can see it goes through the middle school, the elementary schools. Kindergarten center was let's go to kindergarten for all the, we talk about the, what are we going to do, full day kindergarten, how are we going to transition students into kindergarten. This is a nice little model to help students there. The difference between what we did at Phoenixville and what they did at Mifflin is we built it so a parent could, if they wanted to, they could schedule out the entire day. Because as a parent, if you're working, running between work is difficult. So they could get their kids into a camp program at 8 a.m. It would transition from 8 to 10, then 10 to 12. Kids would have lunch, 1 to 3, and then they'd pick them up. So you could have a full day activity for a week if you wanted to do it that way for probably less than they pay for daycare. That's the model we developed it against that could compete and beat daycare, and it did. So we just take it down. You can see a couple more of the programmatic ideas. Summer Band Odyssey. I mean, just we had academic things, Algebra 1, pre-algebra, just many, many courses, and you can see the price is, I think, fairly parent-friendly to that model. Reading enrichment, on it goes, guys. I mean, I could show you on, and it was a really robust program down there, and it continues to thrive, and they continue to grow it. So our next steps, what do we want to do? Well, as a board, you have to make a decision that we'd like to go this way or we wouldn't like to go this way and investigate further and begin to stage it. And then we need some intra-district departmental collaboration, and that would happen in November and December, and they're the 5 levels of people that have to work to solve this. So athletics would lead it through our athletic director, activities director, and he would facilitate with the supervisor facilities, business department representative, Mr. Small would probably give it to Mr. Miller, I'm guessing, right? So that was where we go with that. Director of Technology, we need Mr. Matz to help set up the online piece. And then building level administrators would begin to rally staff members. It's a nice little cottage industry for a staff member in the summer to be able to do that and make a little extra money on the side if they want to. And if not, you partner with an outside group. You have to launch it in January because parents begin to make their summer vacation programs starting in January and February. The revenue streaming, my recommendation would be this would be a way to help the district revenue stream and the boosters. This would bring more money into that group as well, and you can decide what the fair split would be in that model. But I think we're all aware that the boosters fund and support a lot of the activities that happen in our extra or co-curricular programming, and so to give them a revenue stream would probably be a helpful idea. But that can be fleshed out in a greater degree. Whereas the fitness strategic plan that I shared with the board, well, I told you when we came on, we kind of did this piece, so we're looking at that. Mr. Basil, I just want to show you that again. See that?
That was very impressive.
I like that. So here's where we are looking at launching this piece here on continuing to enhance and diverse growth opportunities. So that's kind of the overview of it. Obviously, there's more detail and a lot of work to be done, and you'll have to make some decisions if you want to go forward with that idea. Okay? Questions? Mrs. Kramer, that's as fast as I could.
Thank you very much.
All right. Give me a directive.
I have a comment.
Sure.
I was very glad to see that writing was included as one of the activities. I still continue to think that is the one critical element that helps determine success. And having graduated in high school and then in the school district, I'm glad that I got the foundation that I did. But there's always room to improve, and that's even college professors and college authors, all they do is talk about improving. But I'm really glad to see that taking a nice space in the Blazer song.
Well, I think it has an opportunity to bring the community together, and I think that there's a lot of nice community support. And if we can put it under one umbrella, I think it's just a great community activity to draw to the school and a good use of resources in the community.
So I just had a quick question in terms of marketing. Is this just being marketed directly to our current student population, or going to be marketed to every family in the community? Or even beyond?
That's a fair question, and it's something I think we'd have to develop and flesh out a little more. How far and how big we'd like to make this. I mean, we're really unlimited to what we could do, I think. It's about how much human resource can you put on this. I think I'll speak for everybody. I know they're all saying, well, not another thing. But it's how much can we put on it, and how many people can we get to really grab the rope and pull on this project to make it work?
Just as an idea, my son plays lacrosse, and he went and did a Coventry lacrosse summer program at Owen J. Roberts, and that was actually developed, run, organized everything by a high school senior. He made it a project, like an independent study, to start. He's into lacrosse. He wanted to share it with younger kids, and went to the coach, got permission from the building principal, and it was a very successful one-week-long program. Just as a thought, we have a lot of creative seniors out there. Maybe it's a way of incentivizing students to get behind the Blazer Summer Program as well, and give them an opportunity maybe to earn some credits or some experience, or something to put on their college resume of starting and running a program with some back office support.
Yeah, I think it's great to hear from Mr. Basil, but I think we should also put it in our newsletter and we should reach out to other districts to communicate this information. If we're going to make a great program, let's do it, and let's bring as many students as we can. That's my opinion, at least.
We're going to need to get this finalized by January. What's the next step?
Next step is you have to make a decision, yeah, we want to do it. And then once you want to do it, I will task Mr. Shannon and support him in moving forward and structuring the whole piece. And how far and wide we get it up and running the first year, I'm not sure. I think we ought to make inroads in each of the three areas, academically, athletically, and activities and hobbies. So you begin to evolve the foundation in all those areas, not just athletically. So next step, approval from you guys, and then we'll start to put the team together to build it.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't approve that tonight?
Well, I do have one quick question for Mr. McKnight. The staff that would be overseeing this, or would this be within our contractual group or outside the contractual
Well, the first thing I think we ought to offer to our contractual team, our teachers, we hire them. We think a lot of them as staff, and they're smart people and bright people. So I would want to give them the first crack at engaging them. But if there's no interest, then you partner with an outside provider to do the work, because we don't want the students to miss out on the opportunities. So in that case, then that's when I looked at that piece where it'd be about, and you can decide what the appropriate level of split is. 50-50 split, where the district absorbs the field space and the overriding insurance. That's the incentive for an outside provider to come in. But they really don't have overhead. They just need to bring their system and their camp or whatever to us. So that's a piece that you will have to decide, I think, as a policy group and as a board, what would be the revenue splits and things like that.
In terms of communicating this information to students in particular, I think it would be very important to know that this is in no way summer school.
No,
especially
right.
at the younger levels, because that might
sure. Yeah, this is fun.
Absolutely.
Right. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. McKnight.
Any public comment on Mr. McKnight's presentation?
I did have item B we added at the beginning.
Yeah, but I want to hear about that.
Beverly Albright, 239 Lilac Lane, Littlesville.
I don't believe that's on.
It says it's green.
It's actually
there. Okay. Going along with what Mr. McKnight presented, the Springport School District has done this for over 10 years, and it's extremely successful. What they do is around January of every year, they email the entire staff and ask what your talents and interests are. Because it eliminates, if you go to the staff first, you don't have to worry about clearances, you don't have to worry about any of those things you have to think of when you bring outside people in. And, everyone has splinter skills and what they're good at. You have like anything from scrapbooking to writing to anything. And then you have to decide what buildings it's going to be in. You want to kind of contain it to as few buildings as you can, because it interrupts cleaning and all these other kind of things. But it's been very successful, especially for the parents who want the whole day. So you want to arrange it so they can have the whole day at the program. And I think it's a great idea. I think it would definitely help this area.
Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Kurt safety discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. This is not something that I really intended to bring forward before, really a few minutes before this meeting, but I did have a conversation, a very brief conversation with Mr. Radcliffe. I thought it might be something the board would want to entertain in light of some of the tragedies that are seemingly becoming more common terribly around the country. Just what we as a district are doing in terms of planning. I don't think this would be a discussion of technicalities. I don't think we should be reviewing necessarily building plans, especially in a public forum. But in terms of questions about our ability of the the ability of our employees, our security guards to respond to crises, response times from local police operations, state police. Just, I think it's something important to be involved in terms of making sure that issues of safety are at the forefront. And I wouldn't want a tragedy to necessitate change if we could change beforehand. So I don't know if this is something the board is interested in pursuing. I don't necessarily know what the scope of the committee would be, but perhaps just something to think about if this is the direction we'd like to go to discuss these things. At the very least, I had this thought, and I thought it would be in the best interest of the board to bring it up now, as opposed to just letting it simmer.
I guess I'll add to it. So, I mean, we had the discussion, it had to be over a year ago about, I know, that's the opinion about having the state police come in and do an audit and review at the high school. I never had it. I know I was told we were on a waiting list. We've in the past month, we've talked about upgrading our employee ID system. We've made some changes at Abbey Elementary as far as security goes. We've done some changes to the high school with cameras. So we've hit bits and pieces, but I think we need to have maybe a comprehensive talk about our overall security for the district. And because uniquely the high school is in a state police zone, which we know can be, so we should, it's not like calling Amity or Birdsboro Police. The state police will respond, but the question is, depending on what the severity of the situation is. Maybe we do talk about having an officer attached to our district, but I think it's all a conversation that we should have before something happens as opposed to
Well, if I understood correctly, Mr. Kurtz would like to establish a subcommittee, so board members that are interested in being on this safety committee ad hoc, contact Mr. Kurtz.
Well, I think there's a difference between emergency response and emergency preparedness, correct? So emergency response we can't really discuss because that's basically classified information. We don't want to broadcast how we would respond to an emergency situation so that folks can't thwart that. That's a subject for executive discussion with our administration. I think in terms of emergency preparedness, look, there was a time in this country kids were instructed to get under their desks in case of a nuclear attack. So I think that, not that we're going to go that extreme, but I certainly think that warrants a discussion of whether or not there are drills or other things that are done in the buildings with students, and that's a community discussion, clearly, with parents and whatnot, about how our, not only our faculty, but our students prepared to respond to something other than a fire drill, should something happen. And are they looking for means of egress? Are they getting organized? Are they locking the doors if a faculty member runs? I mean, what are they supposed to do instead of just freezing up and not knowing what the appropriate response is? And that comes with training. So I don't know how parents would feel with that, or administrators, but clearly that's something that our new superintendent could take a look at as well. I'm sure he's got lots of thoughts on the matter.
And I don't want to give the impression that we are unprepared. I don't want to give that impression at all. I just think we owe it as a board, as the entity responsible for the operations of the entire district, to make sure that the matter is sensitive and is important, gets our full attention.
Other comments or questions? Public comments or questions? Any public presentations on any issue? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.